The Lockheed Vega is progressing. These undercarriage parts are just dry fitted on right now, and it can stand on its undercarriage in the dry fitted state, which is quite nice. The pin fit of those things, those various bits, is not bad at all. There was a little bit of a drama last night in that I thought I had lost one of the undercarriage legs, one of these main rectangular pieces. It was on the desk but hidden under some stuff, and that would have been a little minor disaster. But I have that. I've test fitted that enough, cleaned it up nicely, and decided not to glue it on till after painting. So that's sort of one of the decisions, is what is the benefit of gluing it first and painting, and what detriment might there be to the paint? Like, there's just too much stuff and a bit of overspray in there, versus the just flat spraying of these individual pieces. So not to mention the decals, so it's going to be much easier not having the undercarriage on till the end. And because that fit is very nice, I just need to make sure that the paint doesn't go into those holes where I need to glue and onto the pins. So that'll be easy enough. I have just glued on one of the horizontal stabilizers. They both needed quite a bit of work, way more than I was expecting, to get them flush in there, and also very, very 90 degrees. So that's good. Progressing. Under the tail skid I'll leave off right till the end. Just got that last little bit of fit problem with the main wing to sort out, but basically the thing is just needing masking and then spraying, and then a lot of decals. The cowling as well with the engine, there's no reason for that to go on before spraying. In fact, it'll just cause more problems being present. This way you can spray and get full painting around the front there, and the engine fits on easily enough. The fact that the wheels are molded in there just means that after I'm spraying the thing white, I just have to hand paint matte black there, or even matte grey black, tire black. Don't think there's much else to say about that. That canopy piece is very, very thick. Obviously you can see that that plastic thickness is incredibly thick, but it doesn't matter too much in this case. So, while we always like thin canopy moldings, there's really nothing to actually observe there, and in a sense it's the way it sort of reflects the light and all of that doesn't matter at all. Sort of almost adds to the effect with all of those faceted panels. Obviously it's ridiculously too thick. If you wanted to do a really scale one, you could do a thin molding off that. And I thought I would just quickly talk about this Glencoe Models Spirit of St. Louis. Very, very few pieces. Much, much, much easier than this Lockheed Vega. Now this is the simpler of the two kits that I have. I'll do this one first, and it's really just a quick build, and I'm not particularly doing it next, just while I feel like gluing some halves of things together. So there's very little to do there, but it was worth talking about this wing. So this wing is quite a long wing compared to that. A fair bit longer and a fair bit thinner, and it has 0 dihedral. But the important thing is that the lower surface especially is virtually just a flat piece, and as a result it does have a little bit of waviness in it. It is not perfect, and neither really is the upper surface. And the upper surface with its curvature is more rigid, but it's not the most rigid you've ever seen on kits. Now I was pondering, do I put in some stretched sprue to try and give it some rigidity? And the thickness of stretched sprue, of just sprue that you can get in there is actually not very significant. So that's out. And while I will sometimes address warping issues with water, this is not one of those times. This is very, very minimal, and with just a little bit of bend pressure, everything changes. So while I'm gluing this, all that I need to do is ensure that this stays dead straight. This is a wing with 0 dihedral. But while these two pieces are together, you will see the bit of waviness that's present there. So even just clamping that together does not solve the problem, because it still needs to end up in a dead straight line. It has 2 pins right on the most outside there. First thing is I had to reduce the amount that the pin goes in, because it wasn't allowing these surfaces to touch. So that's the first thing. Secondly, decide whether you want the pins, and I would like them in, because they do in fact hold everything in the correct position. So you put it together there, and then feel if you've got leading edges and obviously visually as well, and trailing edges correct. And if it is all correct, then there's more benefit to those pins being there to aid your final position than not. So when I glue this, if I decide to glue it one shot, then I will be sitting there and pressing all the surfaces and making sure it sort of doesn't pull apart anywhere. This one has very little stress. I can feel, unlike a lot of the other ones, that's when the hot water is far more valuable. But you do stand to mess up your aircraft that way. Very little pressure required to do anything here, even adjust the, that sort of thing, or even partial. I could glue one side and then slowly progress, but the most important thing with this wing is that it ends up dead straight. And so up front I already know what my actions will be. It'll be to glue it. Firstly, get it to attach, make sure that you've got leading edges and trailing edges touching, or decide whether I'm going to ignore trailing edges, for instance, or ignore leading edges, but I don't see a particular reason for that. So it'll be a tube glue over all of those contact surfaces. There's enough contact surface there, and while there is also a lot of surface there, I mean, in this case, it's not a huge difference which side the glue goes on, but I will be doing it on that side. A little bit more of a rigid piece to hold. You can see exactly where the glue needs to go. And that will mean sort of more than half an hour's worth of just continually giving pressure at the right place, so that little wobble in the middle, that area there ends up dead straight like a ruler. Nice wing, it's got a nice rib detail, and once the wing is together, the fuselage is a really, really easy thing. Fits together well enough. Horizontal stab and fin are one piece. Good enough, nothing wrong there. So I will maybe try and address that wing. It's got very simple decals, this one. A little bit of interesting silver paint just to get a nice effect there. but it's not a model I want to put a whole lot of effort into. I'd just like to build it mildly acceptably. Now, one of the comments was relating to sanding raised detail. It was very, very effective on the Vulcan. It has been effective on a number of older Airfix kits, and I grabbed one out here to use as an example, and that's this one. So this aircraft has actually got of the finest Airfix raised rivet detail that probably exists on a model. It is absolutely perfect and doesn't need any sanding down. But now the question is, what sort of effect would you have if you sanded that down? It's very, very fine. Do you gain that panel detail if you sanded this? And I would say yes, you will gain some. This is the right color, by the way, or at least it's an acceptable color. If you were going to do this aircraft white upper like that, then certainly on those upper surfaces there, this plastic color would shine through and you would see that detail, and it would take absolutely minimal sanding. Now when you're sanding, that's with about used 600, even new 600 might be a bit too strong, but it's a very soft, you basically just softly going over, trying not to do anything to the paint and just trying to wear down that ever so slight bit of raised detail. That's on this one. On the B1, that was a different story. That was pretty raised, and I had a strongish coat of paint on it with the first coat of floor wax, so it had that protective layer on it, which helps. You don't want to go through your paint. If you're going through your paint, especially on something like this, a civilian scheme, then you're causing more damage than good. On the lower section, that is silver. What do you gain from sanding down that rivet detail? I would say you probably do, and when I do this one I might actually do that. You might gain a little bit of effect even through the silver. This grey coming through the silver probably will have effect. When it's not worth sanding is when you've got a lot of sticky out bits like the Shackleton that I'm doing. I am doing the sanding, but it's way more work around all of the areas versus a generally flat surface which you can sand easily. If you are going to do a second coating of something and you are already doing a sanding on an earlier coat, you do stand to lose any effect that detail had, which I have done on a model. In other words, a base coat, possibly even an intermediary coat, do some sanding to reduce the amount of rivet detail. You wouldn't do it on this one. This has got such fine detail. Then you paint some more and you just about lose all of your detail, so then you are just painting a flat surface. So you need to sort of plan how much sanding to bring that out. I wouldn't recommend sanding on a plastic color which is bright and not realistic for an aircraft. So if it's a green or a blue or a yellow or an orange, that type of color is obviously going to be a very, very weird effect, even on tiny rivets. The only way that you get away with that is if you sand down to the point where you then spray a base coat, leaving just enough rivet detail so that when you do your sanding, you're actually not sanding down to plastic, you're only sanding down to your previous raised base coat color, which I have done. But you need to realize that you know, if you sand too much, you are going through to a bright color, which sort of damages the whole effect that you've done. If you don't, if you just leave the rivet detail as it is, as many Airfix modelers do, the old Airfix modelers, you still have not a bad effect. And depending if you're doing a wash or some sort of weathering effects, even dry brushing, those rivets may still play an interesting role there. I don't always do the sanding effect, but the sanding method, but I do sometimes. So I have for tonight, or I've just remembered that I haven't filled that center area there. I still need to do that. But tonight it's that canopy masking, which is good 10 panels at least, not counting the side windows, just 10 panels there. So I have to go and lay down some Tamiya masking tape and cut 90-degree sections, 45-degree sections, and try and stick little triangles into the triangular sections and gradually build up. That is a very tedious job, but in this case it sort of just has to be done. No way around it on this one. But I'm pretty happy with the way the tail plane has gone on. I'm happy with the mounting of the way the undercarriage is, even though when you do this, you still need to pay attention that, you know, you can still adjust that slightly. You need to ensure that the two wheels are actually matching and that the one's not a little bit ahead of the other one and so on. The way they've made it is pretty reasonable, so that's okay. The wheel spats on this one probably are not the correct shape at all. Those look like thin little biscuit tins, but they've got decals on them, so that's another reason to do them separately. Okay, time to and I also almost forgot that backing there just needs a piece of plastic card in there, but not on the sides. A little bit of plastic card for the fuel tank, and that can get painted white, and then once finished and I've got decals on, I can just touch that with a slightly different color for the fuel tank inside there. Technically, if you look inside the wing, which you can get a slight effect of the color through the canopy, but really you can't look in there. And in fact, even frontal, you can't really tell that would be open, so don't even really need to put a piece in there, but I will, because it's an easy enough piece of little sheet plastic. I put that little piece of grey sprue in there just to act as a stopper, have something to mount that little blank off in there. So we're getting there. Let's see if I can just push this masking and get that done. Okay, happy modeling.